Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and happy 4th of July to those who celebrate this holiday. Hopefully, it is not too warm where you're at. It was a pretty hot one by us. It's wildfire season, so there's a decent sized fire that's actually, unfortunately, not far from us right now. So we had a smoky morning, but it's cleared out for the most part. So hopefully most of you aren't dealing with that kind of stuff. It's been a smoky summer so far for a lot of us. But speaking of smoky, I have a special guest today, and it's Lee Thunderchicken. I am so excited to talk with Lee. We're going to just talk cannabis, but we're also going to talk about Lee's experience as a farmer. He is a chicken father, I like to refer to him as. He also has a lot of other gardening experiences. He is a maker of some fine extracts and topicals and edibles and all the good things that come along with the world of cannabis. So we're going to get into it. And I'm excited to have him. We also did a cannabis roundtable, me, Lee, James of Grounded Extracts, and Ben Balderson a few months ago. And that was really fun. But one of the things that Lee and I actually talked about after the show was we weren't able to get as deep as we wanted to on other certain things. And I really wanted to focus in on Lee's expertise on making his extracts because he has a pretty cool setup. He has a lot of experience with it. And when I first came across Lee, it was actually on Facebook because he was posting all of these awesome things that he was making. One of the things that caught my eye the most was an infused sugar that he makes and he adds to his coffees and stuff like that. I thought that was really interesting. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Lee to the stream. Howdy, Lee.
How are y'all doing today?
Doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. It's a hot one here, that's for sure.
Yeah, what's it like?
Like Florida. It's
Yeah.
87, no breeze, like 90% humidity.
Yay. Whew. Yeah. It's we're now like entering in the dog days of summer. So this is where I feel like everything gets cranked up a little bit because at least by us, it's been fairly mild until just the last few days. It's just really, they cranked up the heat. So here we go. So for those who don't know you, can you just give a very short introduction for everybody? Who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Try to keep it as short as I can. My name's Lee. I've chosen to go by the name Thunderchicken. It's always good to have an alias. It's a catchy name, right? So I grow cannabis products. I've been growing cannabis in Michigan for about 10 years now. I've grown indoors with all the major leading hydroponic fertilizers. I've been growing outdoors for about 5 years. Last 4 have been organic, and that's where I'm at. That's where I'm going to stay. But the main reason I do it has always been an alternative remedies because I've just completely lost all confidence in our medical system to actually help people. I have a lot of personal reasons for doing what I do, but that's what I dedicate my time to now.
Nice.
Plant medicines.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I was telling people beforehand, like the way I came across you was actually through Facebook because you were posting a lot of the stuff that you make. Particularly, you had like a infused sugar that you make. You've got topicals that you make. You have your own special process that you do as well. And so I want to kind of get into that a little bit as well too, so people can also know where they can find you. I know you're on Facebook and you do offer your products. So just, where people can contact you or how they can get a hold of you to get that kind of stuff is important too.
Yes, I'll put my email into the chat.
Okay.
Facebook Messenger. I'm on Telegram. I got a cell phone number. Try to do it like that. I haven't gotten into building a website. That's the trouble is, I got too many projects. I need to focus all my energy on one thing. But I got at least 7 things going at all times.
Yeah. It's actually a good way to be, I think, but as we kind of talked about behind stage a few days ago, you talking about the importance of, managing the things that you bite off to, don't bite off more than you can chew. And that can happen to a lot of people, I think, especially with gardening and outdoor stuff, because I think you can just get, and I think it's a good thing because it's ambition, you're like wanting to do these things. then you get into it and you realize, oh, okay, I've got so many irons in the fire that something might have to fall to the wayside. So what's been your experience this year? Because every year is different with gardening, right?
Oh
So
yes.
what have you noticed this year that's different? What were things that you would change or maybe space out in a different way?
Oh well, I wish I'd gotten my automatic irrigation systems finished. Been still manually watering, and it's been very dry here, unusually dry. One of the drier Mays on record. So most everything popped up. I was doing a direct in an effort to cut time on tasks. See, I usually start all my seeds for my food garden and cannabis garden. I start them indoor. This year, I still started my cannabis indoor, but I chose to direct seed cast food crops and stuff. So I got a late start. It'll still be done plenty of time. But I should have been out watering more. See, I've overextended our well. We're on a well, but we have 18 sheep, 2 cow, a horse, 15 chickens running around. So I've maxed out the well's capacity. So I'm currently installing gutters and rain catchers, which I mean, I already catch about 300 gallons every time it rains, but I'm trying to 5 times that. So I wanted to get into doing bees this year. That was a project I had to curtail. It's just not enough time to get to everything. I eventually want to get into doing dairy. Just one guy.
Yeah.
You got to be realistic.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I think too, one of the things, at least for me, that has been such a huge lesson with gardening is patience, is like not trying to rush things. And, as you say, you're one guy. So it's like all the things that we want to do, it's like good to dream big. And then I always try and remind myself that if it's not going to happen this year or maybe even next year, it might happen like 4 years down the road. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
That the fact that it's in your scope and it's in the intentions, I feel like, if it's meant to be, it'll be. And like that's kind of how a lot of things in life end up going.
That's
So,
that's one of my tips. Like if you're out, especially nowadays, it's important to be frugal, like shopping on a budget. Flea markets, yard sales. Even though I don't have time to get to the beekeeping, I'm picking up bee equipment. If I see it, it's affordable, I grab it. Always buying more mason jars. You never have enough mason jars. That's just one example of like just I love to rummage. So flea markets and yard sales, estate sales, very good places to find these things affordably. Everybody thinks you got to go buy everything new. Everything that's new nowadays, it's made to fail. It's called engineering obsolescence. It's what keeps the economy going. People showing up to their jobs because they got to buy a new refrigerator every 5 years, washer and dryer. Your car don't last 3 days past its 7-year warranty. These things are done on purpose, and it's true with everything across the board. Power drills, even chintzy metal in your screws and nails. It's terrible nowadays. So that's just one example. Buy the oldest stuff you can find, and the best place to find that's flea markets and yard sales.
yeah, I would have to agree. And, I always think about all the shit that there already is in the world because it's like an infinite amount. And the fact that people feel like they have to buy new things. And, there's also a lot of stuff that nature just naturally provides, like literally like sticks and limbs from
Mm-hmm.
trees can be used to make trellises and fences and all of these things that you really actually start to realize that you don't have to buy much at all to do a lot. And that was one of our biggest lessons this year. We built a dead hedge fence, which is basically just taking dead wood, taking yard debris that is like bramble and stuff like that. You build a base, like you build frame panels, and then you fill the panels with the old dead wood, and you just layer it up, and it eventually becomes its own compost. And we used not one screw, not one nail, nothing. And it's just pretty amazing to see. And then when you look at like videos of people, when they would do like wedge houses and stuff like that, there's certain names for stuff, but that's like basically how they would build foundations and then stuff it with mud and clay and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all really good lessons too for people. I think a lot of times people who are new to gardening think that they do have to go out and buy all this new stuff. They have to buy the this, the that's, and the other things. And you end up spinning your wheels and spending a lot of money that you don't really need to.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if it costs you $7 to produce a tomato, you're not winning.
Yeah, no, totally. That is so true. So I have to ask though, what was the selection of Thunderchicken? Where'd you get that name from?
Well, it's a kind of to me, it's a comedic spin on the phoenix.
Ah,
I was on acid one night and just saw a picture of a phoenix and just that's a thunder chicken. It's just kind of stuck. But it's kind of serendipitous to my own rising from the ashes. So I've kind of kept the name, and it's catchy, and yeah, it's a good name,
nice.
I think.
It is a good name. I like it. I totally like it. Well, right on. All right. Well, let's get into cannabis because I have just really loved watching what you do and everything you always have on Facebook and all the pictures and everything else. And you've produced really beautiful plants that I've seen anyway. So, when did you first start growing? And did you start as an indoor grower or have you always just grown outdoor?
Oh no, I started indoor. That's how I got accepted into college, community college here in town on April 20th, 2012. Complete coincidence, but there's no such thing as coincidence, right? So I think it's very prophetic that I started my college on 420. But yeah, I started growing I rented a 2-bedroom apartment near the college, walking distance. And I slept in the living room for the 2 years I was living there. I put myself through college growing in my bedrooms. In Michigan state laws, I was doing 36 plants at the time. Back then you could still get $400 an ounce for good quality indoor. So, I mean, I could do that. I had a part-time job on the side and pay all my bills and put myself through college. And eventually, the biggest mistake I ever made financially, but one of the best things I ever did for experience was partnering up with somebody. It allowed me expand operations, bigger budgets, but then people screw you over when the money comes in. So be careful with that. You can't just go get it, and they'll put you in jail for that shit. So forewarned, choose your partners wisely.
Yeah, crucial. And money talks. It's funny how money makes things change
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff, which too, I mean, kind of is the case even with legalization of everything. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
it's an interesting thing. And we talked about this at the Cannabis Roundtable, just kind of like watching this industry change a lot, but then certain things stayed the same, but change on like a big scale when it comes to just taxation, money, regulations, labeling, all the things that go into it. And now we're kind of at the forefront of the same thing happening with medicinal mushrooms, kind of like that's the beginning happening, at least here in Oregon, or I'm in Washington, but very close to Oregon. So anyway, it's interesting to see what happens when the state gets involved on a bigger level, on a legalization level, because in my opinion, the state's always involved in some way.
Yeah, that's the brick wall I've hit here in Michigan is like there's all these laws in place to keep mom and pop shops, any kind of small, because I'm trying to just do homesteading. I'd love to set up a produce stand if I could sell cuttings, propagations, my products, but they'll put you in jail for that shit.
Right.
Um, so unless you already have $100,000 or more in the bank, you can't even sit at the table with these people. And that's what's kind of keeps me out of the loop here now, and it's so disappointing. There's like almost no market for organic grown products. Everybody wants the chemical grown indoor stuff. It's just nobody knows the difference. So I'm starting to think maybe I need to make that my crusade, is just to educate people on the difference of the chemically grown, soilless medium indoor hydroponic versus outdoor natural compost and soil, because there's such a difference in it. Bud density, like the amount of leaf, vegetation. Like people go to the dispensaries now and you get this rock hard nug and it smells like perfume. Like I won't smoke that shit. I know how it's grown. It's like I used to eat hot dogs until I saw how hot dogs were made. It's kind of like that. But I wish I'd had more time to prepare. I should have made, because there's a bunch of images and stuff. Like the visuals really help it, and I can show you the different PGR, plant growth regulators, and how they tweak the hormones to get them to swell up in those rock-like nugs. Now there are, genetics that will have denser nugs or airier nugs than others. But if you want a bud hardener, like kelp is a good way to naturally do it, but it just still doesn't come close to the hormone alterations that the PGRs get that everybody wants. So it's just hard to compete with that. So I'm thinking maybe moving shop to a new state that just went, recreational and medicinal. But with what I've seen with the recreational market here in Michigan, I don't want nothing to do it. It's like it's totally against all my ethics of growing. Like I grow it as, it's my medicine, my remedies. You got to watch that word, But the recreational market, I've been to a few events and stuff, and like the people walk around like friggin' zombies, and I'm not trying to do that to people. I can. If you take enough of it, you'll do that. But like a lot of this indoor, 35%, it's smells good, looks good. I don't like that buzz at all. It's kind of numbing, and it's more of a drug than a medicine. So it's like turning it into its negative polarity.
Definitely. I love that point because I love that we're talking about this because this is one of the things I wanted to pick your brain about too. And just noticing the differences between dispensary weed and homegrown or what have you. I mean, I also always just gravitate towards sun grown. So outdoor in the sun, getting the organic nutrients and not using any like crazy fertilizers. And I personally lean towards that all the time, and you can tell a difference even by looking at it, by smelling it, by feeling it. But the smoke and the energetics of the plant are so much different and so much healthier and so much more vibrant, in my opinion, that it is kind of a shame that people have gotten so used to this Hollywood weed or whatever you want to call it. But it's like more for us kind of thing, because the people who know, and they will share their delicious outdoor bounty with the people who they know appreciate it. And every once in a while, luckily I don't have to really go to dispensaries very often because we've been able to grow our own and have our own stash and have friends that do the same. So not many trips to the dispensaries really made at all, which is really nice. But I just find that people, just like in general, they like flashy things. They like things that are studded and glitter, and they like everything that looks nice. And so you give them an outdoor bud, but I've had outdoor buds that look way better than dispensary weed that is this flashy stuff. So it's just I think it's a lack of knowledge. So I like hearing you say that you just think that your role might be just to further educate people on the importance of what we're talking about instead of worrying so much about changing what the industry is doing, because I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I think like with a lot of these things, with taking care of yourself and having self-responsibility, it's more about doing it and leading by example. And I think that that's always the best way to go. And you're totally doing that. So you're already in that role, So I look forward to you doing more of that work because that's really important.
Yeah, and to me, like I said, that there's nothing wrong with an indulgent, with getting high now and again. There's nothing wrong with that. You work hard all day and you want to, smoke a joint. Maybe some people don't smoke joints; they crack a beer. To each their own. I don't get into the judgy parts of that, but it's something that I'm just seeing. As far as like correcting the dispensaries, they just go where the market wants. It's give the people what they want, and that's why I think educating the people is more important than trying to, because you can't vote these people out. It's all lobbyists that set these things, and it is what it is. But the best thing you can do is just try to meet people one-on-one. It's the same that we all face in the truth community, just trying to wake people up to what's going on. This is just another thing. A lot of people are aware of what they're doing to your food supply. The high estrogen, the microplastics, the seed oils, the bugs coming down the pipeline and the lab-grown meats. This is no different. This is lab-grown, flowers. It's still chemicals. I used these chemicals for years. For 7 years, I was using them all. I've used general hydroponics. I've used advanced nutrients, Fox Farm, Humboldt something. Like there's so many now. Like there's a couple that are still doing it pretty good. Like I'll start the clones and cuttings off with I use NPK Raw. It's a company, I think they're in Oregon. And if you're going to use salt, use crystallized salt. it's, as pure a form as you can get to it. But even still, like, you get salt buildup and you'll get sulfur burn if you're not watering off enough. And, with the flushing, it's that's another way you can tell the quality of your cannabis is the quality of your ash when you're smoking a joint or a bowl. The whiter the ash, the cleaner the flower was. The grayer, darker it was, that's more chemical burn. If you're ever smoking something and it pops, it's not a seed. It's usually a nitrate nitrogen or something.
Wow, that's a great tip. Holy man. I've never heard that.
Nitrate nitrogen will make a plant look beautiful. Huge, fat leaves, dark green. It looks healthy. It's a short-term payoff with long-term detriment, like so many things in the allopathic world. It's just the same fractal correlation to these things, in my opinion. But,
right.
So that's one thing, but you can't, no matter what you do, you can't change people's accountability and responsibility for what they're consuming. Nowadays, you're seeing in the dispensaries, the packaging costs more than what's in the package nowadays. It's ridiculous. And, and all this just gets thrown to waste. Like, there's no eco-conscious, they don't sell. You'd think of people like pot smokers would be, more nature conscious. It's the exact opposite. It's mind blowing. It's like, when everybody started wearing masks and the health stores were some of the worst Nazis. It's like, this makes no sense.
I know, it was infuriating. I know, it was nuts. I ran into that with going to herb shops in Portland, because we were still living in Portland when that was all happening. And I'm like, whoa, seriously? I mean, you're taking my temperature. I can't touch the herb jars anymore. You have to, grab everything for me. It was just crazy. I know. I feel the same way. I think there's a stigma. It's unfortunate that happens, because I think that the way that the industry is and how you described being at some of these conferences and just like having like zombies walk around, it kind of unfortunately puts a bad name on on the whole thing in general. I even have friends who older friends who kind of I don't know if they necessarily look down on us as smokers, but I think that they have that same programming of the egg in the pan frying your brain or something like that, because there are people walking around smoking this weed or, whatever, just out of it all the time, that it puts a bad rap on it. But, it is what it is. As we said, all you can do is just be yourself and do what you do and, keep it real and just keep moving, because whatever it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and some people use it as a vice, but then there are people that need it, for medical reasons. And that, I think, is what is scary about the dispensary stuff, is that what damage is being done to people who might be only able to get dispensary cannabis, who are constantly having to use it. How much harm is actually happening to them with all the other additives that might be in there. That's kind of what's unfortunate too,
Yeah, and that's like I said, if you go to the recreational cannabis events, that's what you see. It's just all the most negative, worst stereotypes, that gives people like me and you a bad name. And I can't control all that. I just can separate myself from it. But I still kind of know whether to be mad at myself or not, because it's really it's my morals and principles that keeps me from going and getting a job in the industry. Because I could walk into a chemically grown, soilless medium grow. Even they don't do hydroponic anymore because of the efficiency and the mildew and all the extra fungicides they have to spray to control the mildew. But I mean, in the processing labs, the reason that cannabis concentrates, the BHO, has become so cheap is because of something called CRC technology. CRC is color remediation cartridge. You could think of it as like an inline fuel filter. What they do is when the oil has been extracted and it's diluted in the solvent, they run the butane, propane through activated charcoal, silica. There's all kinds of different mixtures that they use, depending on what they're targeting to filter out. And so they can spray all the pesticides and fungicides they want on what they're going to process for that, because they're filtering it out with these media. and then it's all set up with state regulations. There's certain allowable amounts and this and that. And it's just like USDA approved anything, and there's low standards on their approvals, and even on the packaging and stuff, it'll tell you like, oh, this is 30% THC, and then like allow a variance for 10%. So like if you get 30% and it's 10% off, that's a big difference, right? So it's like you can't even trust these things anyways. But I don't know. To me, it just all smells like perfume. I don't like it anyway. But the CRC, like when you smoke something that I make, which is just straight flower run, fire in, fire out. That's the other thing with why it's so cheap with CRC is they can take dog shit trim, just the worst quality of material, and still make it come out looking good. And so it's become so flooded. That's why it's so cheap. I don't know what it is out there, but here, like, you can get 15 1 milligram cartridges of the distillate with, an artificial terpene put in and diluted. A lot of them aren't even diluted anymore because distillates become so cheap. And you can get 15 of them for like $100 at the dispensary here. Dispensaries are $90 an ounce. It's like, I'm competing with Walmart, So it's just trying to build a niche market. People that are passionate about what they do. People that don't just smoke it to get high. That's a hard customer to find anymore, The
Right.
people that are like that, they usually do it themselves. And I love that. I mean, I don't care if it's good for business or not. That's the kind of people I try to surround myself with because we're always bouncing ideas off of each other and becoming better at what we do.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, that's the most important. It's like finding your people, the people that are going to raise you up, and then you do the same for them. And I mean, it's just like being in a healthy relationship, whether it be romantic or a friendship. It's like if you're not feeling like you're getting, you're not motivating each other or encouraging each other to do the right thing or positive things or things that are best for you. I mean, it might be time to just move along. And that's why I think a lot of us have found ourselves in this area where we're like, all right, it's time to rally and create our own communities and not even like in a commune sense. It's like we can be community here in our own way. And I think it's because of the lack of just care that is going on in the grand scheme of things or like on a grander scale, at least in my opinion. So I'm grateful
Absolutely.
to have you around. That's for damn sure. One thing I want to talk about with you is, and I feel like I don't remember where I heard you talking about this. It may have been on the cannabis roundtable we did, but you talked about back crossing cannabis strains. So, can you talk a little bit about that and what that looks like and your experiences with it?
Well, I've done a few breeding projects. I'm by no means a master breeder, but you take something like, for example, you have Chem Dog and OG Kush, and you breed them together, and then you take one of the females and you back cross it, like breeding the father to the daughter. These are inbreeding techniques used for many, many years for dogs. That's how we've come from wolves down to chihuahuas. It's true with chickens. Everything has selective breeding. And sometimes back crossing is part of that, inbreeding even. So that's one technique they use. If I could find, I have this wonderful a meme that just shows you all the possibilities, and because cannabis has 10 chromosomes, that's why there's a male, there's a female. They have 10 chromosomes. So the possibilities from my breeding, your phenotypes. You have phenotypes and chemotypes, which I can even debate on that because like they'll say a chemotype, the two phenotypes are the same, but under the testing they come back with different chemical properties. And I would say that depends on growing conditions. Your different micronutrient availabilities can cause different manifestations. What they've seen in LED growing, by controlling the spectrum in the LED lights, they can get different qualities to manifest. Pink pistol hairs, or whatever. A lemon smell versus a grape smell. They can activate these different genetic traits based on mineral ratios or light spectrum. So I even question the need for a chemotype. It's a good way to describe something, but you could have the two phenotypes, and it's just a different growing condition will give you different outcomes. But a phenotype. So like one example, I did 72 seeds all from the same plant. And I had 72 different outcomes. But like you kind of could group it, I had like 3 main groups, like one was more skunky, one was more lemony, one was more fruity, and even their bud structure could be different. You can think of it like a man and a woman have 10 children. Each of the 10 children, they have a lot of traits with their parents, but they're all unique and different, right? It works the same way breeding cannabis. So it just takes some time and patience and good record keeping. And that's why we have 20,000 different genetics now.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. So what are some of the strains then that have, I know some that are usually in a lot of different cannabis. Like I always think of like Girl Scout cookies is something that you see a lot that's been like crossed a lot. But so are there then like original strains? What happens if what would happen then if you wouldn't back cross? We would just continuously have the same thing going on, correct? Or would nature eventually start to do it on her own? And then, like you said, if you had all those seeds from one plant, but you got different results, what exactly is happening there then? And pardon my ignorance if it's a weird question or whatever.
It's a very appropriate question. It's good. It's a good question. What you have, what you have original, they call those land race genetics, like Acapulco Gold or Panama Red, Maui Wowie, the original, because these were growing there, unscrewed with, reproducing within its own gene pool for however many tens of thousands of years. And so that's why you have stable seeds. You can plant seeds from these, and you're going to have a pretty consistent outcome from it. Now, anytime that you've crossed, Maui Wowie with Acapulco Gold, it might take several generations before you have a consistency in the seeds. Even now with all the seed companies and stuff, when you get 10 seeds of Black Widow or whatever, and you grow them out, you're going to find a lot of differences between them. To be similar but different. That's why it's really hard to have consistency with cannabis.
Okay, that makes sense. I can see.
And then, like I said, the different growing conditions. So I've been working with some of my own genetics for 4 years in the same climate, the same general area, the same soil, mineral constituencies. All these little nuanced details, and it kind of acclimates it to the weather. Like a genetic adaptation, epigenetic, heritage. It gets passed down from a stress, and so the plant experiences stress, and it has more resistance in the next generation to that stress. It works the same with that's why animals have instincts. The chickens, they won't be out in the open field. They just inherently know they're vulnerable out there. Nobody taught them. It's just their instinct. It's epigenetic wisdom passed down to them from all their ancestors getting scooped up by hawks and eagles. So now they know. Stay near cover. It's amazing the fractal correlations you can find with these things.
Yeah, right on. Okay. That makes total sense to me. And I like where this is going because there was a question that popped up when I had my show with Mary Beth Sanchez last week, which thank you, by the way. Oh my God. Thank you so much for recommending her. She is a gem. And I want to, it'd be super fun to have you two on and we could then really go deep, but regardless, we can save that for another time. Somebody had asked me before the show about feminizing seeds, and I feel like you briefly talked about this at the round table, but did you mention that it's like a chemical process that they go through in order to make sure they're feminine, right?
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not sure what they're using nowadays, but a few years ago when I was looking into it, colloidal silver, if you water your plant with colloidal silver, a lunar metal, right, it makes feminized seeds.
Whoa.
But it wasn't like, so they do it and you'd have a 97% feminized rate. But for the CBD hemp business or something like that, when you're doing whole fields of it, they don't have time to go out and look for males every day. So they went to something that's even more screwing with hormones. But yeah, colloidal silver. If you water your plants with colloidal silver, it will feminize the seed, and you can even hermaphrodize cannabis plants in budding if you give them colloidal silver.
Wow.
Interesting, right?
That's
And
super interesting.
I've always found that super interesting because silver is a metal of the moon. And I'm good friends with Ben Balderson. He always says that the moon is masculine and the sun is feminine. I still don't agree with him, but like that's just one little piece of evidence of like, look at this.
Well, totally. And then the moon just being, so relevant to a woman's cycle. And you
Hmm.
can't deny that that's how it goes. And even back in the day, how I'm pretty sure it was usually the new moon that women would menstruate on together on the new moons. And they were like synced up with that. And what's interesting to me too is the thing that keeps coming up in our conversation is hormones. Hormones. They're so important, not only for cannabis, but for us too. And the amount of stuff that we're bombarded with, whether it be through the food or the air or the plastics or whatever, that's a big deal for a lot of people. Like these days, that hormones are just out of whack. And that to me is really interesting that it's like this attack on the hormones of like everything, because even animals are in that same boat. We've known for a long time that they're injecting, if you're buying factory farm meat, you know, more power to you, or I wish you the best, I guess, if you're doing that, because Lord knows that is not right. But, the amount of things that are pumped into these animals to change their hormones or to make so their meat becomes bigger and all the stuff. I just find it super interesting that that is the deal within this realm, in the time that we're living in. I find it super interesting. So it's just one of the weaves that I'm noticing
Oh
throughout our
yeah,
conversation
and
here.
I would say it's intentional, in my opinion.
Yep.
You see the feminization of men everywhere, and you got to remember, like cannabis flowers are already a feminine thing. Um, so when they're tweaking it, making it more feminized with the PGRs and more feminized with the feminine seeds, and that's I'm just saying. I go to these rec events and I just see a lot of sissies. I'm not trying to make fun of them. I think our people suffer for lack of knowledge. They're being poisoned and they don't even know it. And you get hormonally crazy people everywhere.
Yep, I would agree. And it kind of is a little bit of well, we're talking about hormones, but just the amount of people too that are then taking hormones to change their sex or whatever, and then starting at a young age and not knowing the repercussions of that and what that really, really does. And as you said, it's a lack of education, because if people knew how important their hormones were, I don't think they'd be messing
Yeah.
with them as much as they are, uh, at all. And I agree too. I do agree that there is some sort of on purpose agenda, whatever going on. And it's been in the works for a long time. And now we're in a point where we're really seeing a lot of the results of the seeds that have been planted decades ago for what's happening and coming down the pipeline,
Yeah.
right now.
I was talking to a farmer buddy in the area and he was telling me about like, when they started rolling out the monoculture soybeans back in like the 70s and stuff. And I remember George Carlin, like soybean futures. And like, here's your soybean future. You're living in it, you know? But to me, it's a more humane population control. It's genocide by choice. And they get to live out their life, but they don't reproduce. It's very dark, but I guess it's better than mass killings and putting them in holes. So I don't know. I guess it's a little better. They
Yeah,
get
I
a
think
choice.
it's a little better in some way. Totally.
Yeah.
All right. So when it comes to, I have a specific question that popped up for me just over the last couple days, because I was gifted some plants this year, and I think I was given, like, I don't know if you want to call them like the runts of the group or something, because I knew that they were doing all right when I got them, but they're doing much better now. But I wanted to ask a question about when a plant goes into flower. One of them is like is going into flower right now, and I've had that happen before, and then it kind of like jumps back into veg. What's happening there? Is it like a stress thing? Is it nutrients? Am I, what I'm, and they're just in the ground. So I wanted to pick your brain on that, because I want to see what you have to say.
It can be either one of those things or more. Like if it's
Okay.
not getting, because they have light requirements. So what I've seen before is people planting close to a tree line, And like the ones that get more shade would usually bud first. But you're saying they're re-vegging after that, because like if you're even with the proper light cycles, if you give the plant enough phosphorus, you can force it to flower. But that's usually what it is the light cycle. It's thinking, that the fall is coming, it's time to go to seed. Or, if it's in the ground, it's probably not a phosphorus abundance, because it self-regulates. When you're in the ground, they just kind of, take what they need depending on where they're at in your cycle. But if you're, feeding the salt-based instant, fertilizer, that's the other thing I want to get to just backtrack. When you're feeding in a soilless hydroponic medium, anytime that you're not growing in soil, whether it's Pro Mix or Coco Core, Pro Mix and Coco Core are still technically hydroponic because it's soilless. They're just water retaining, but you're still just growing with water. It's a medium that's just meant to hold the water. So it's still hydroponic, even though it's not like ebb and flow or a constant drip. There's many ways to do it. But when you're doing hydroponic growing, you're feeding the plant. When you're growing in the soil, you're feeding the soil. It's the microbes in the soil that do all the work. They're breaking down organic material to feed the roots. And so you feed your soil, molasses, coffee, eggshells, kelp, bat guano. These things feed the soil, the microbes in the soil, not the plant. When you're feeding hydroponics with salt-based chemical fertilizers, you're force feeding the plant. So that's another backtrack I wanted to get to. What was that?
No, that's awesome. We were just talking about, a plant jumping into flower and then coming back to veg, like flowering early or whatever. Because obviously we're in July, way too early. So I was like, interesting. But I had been, it just happened to me one other time when I was given a plant from a friend of mine, and she gave it to me. She's like, it's starting to flower, but it'll go back to veg. And sure enough, I planted it and it went back to veg. And I was like, oh, interesting. But just to see it happening again, I could see how it could be a light thing though in our situation, for sure, knowing where it is. So
yeah, I mean, if she had it in the trunk of a car for 2 days to bring it to you, that's enough to trigger a flower.
Okay.
I've thought about. I've had people ask me, like, can you send me clones? I'm like, no, they can't be in darkness for that long. They'll start flowering. You can't mail them, unless you put a little LED light or something in there, they wouldn't work.
Yeah. Kabir in the chat is asking what molasses is good for. From my understanding, is it B vitamins is one of the things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got some good vitamins and stuff, but it's mostly the sugars. The sugars feed the microbes, because what the symbiotic exchange between the plant roots and the microbes is, the microbes break down the nutrients, and it goes up the plant. The photosynthesis takes place where it's converted to plant sugars, and it comes back down to the roots for storage. The microbes feed off those sugars. So by giving it molasses, you're giving them a different food source, so they don't have to take from the plant, but they're still producing more food for the plant. So really, it's by feeding molasses to the microbes, you're just you're giving the plant a break from having to feed them, so it can keep its own food and be more productive in its growth or flowering or whatever stage it's in. But I typically use molasses mostly the last month, that last end of the cycle. People say, "Oh, it makes your buds sweeter." I'm like, maybe. I can't prove it, but it is beneficial. I know that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I did some experimentation last year with going to the local hot spring by us and gathering the water. And I used that probably in the last 3 weeks of right at the end there. And I will say that they really liked that water. And I mean, obviously every hot spring, every water system in places is going to be different. But I just noticed that they really, really, really enjoyed that. And so I'm going to try that again. But yeah, what do you think about using Epsom salt for magnesium? Because I did that last year and that seemed to work pretty well as for the plants too.
Now, a lot of people will say, yeah, that's organic. I have used it before. I haven't been using it recently because I just use kelp.
Okay.
Adding I got 734 bat guano, and I got some kelp, and I'll use seabird guano. But now that I'm making my own compost with sheep manure and the chicken and the cow and the horse, I'm going to try it this year without any of that stuff. But I have used it in the past. But especially with the hot springs, yeah, you're right. You're going to have a different mineral content depending on what spring you're getting it from. But they're all usually pretty rich in sulfur. Just cannabis, especially cannabis, it has 17 chemical minerals that is absolutely required for healthy growth. And then some others are beneficial, like silica, cobalt. These have been shown to be beneficial but not necessary. But like the top three, everybody knows NPK, your nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. The secondaries are calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. So yes, the Epsom salts is magnesium sulfate. It is instantly available to the plant roots. It's easy to burn, but yes, it's good stuff if you use it in small doses. Less is more, that's for sure. But you can even see. I would more be preferable to using it as a foliar spray. If you're doing a foliar spray, like you're spraying underneath the leaf, and they have these things called stomas. It's like how the plant sweats. It's how it transpires its water. But it's also it can intake through there as well. That's one really good way. If a plant is stressed out or something, you can make echinacea tea and spray it, and it kind of boosts the immune system of the plant too, just like you. So I'm going to start with all kinds of different foliars this year. Like I've heard good things. Soybean sprouts. Sprout your soybean and then malt them, which is like leave them exposed for 3 days, like let them turn brown, malted, and then use that to spray your plants. And the proteins or the hormones, the estrogen, whatever is in them, I'm not sure. But these things aren't evil. It's not hormones aren't evil, but they have a delicate balance that's easy to screw up.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this kind of goes into one of the questions I want to ask before we start wrapping up here. You did a post just the other day about companion plants with cannabis, which is really awesome. I know you're working with other plants too. And so if you want to do just a quick run through on what your favorite companion plants are, and then what you might be working on this year with using other medicinal herbs in combination with cannabis, because there is such a plethora of options when it comes to that. So yeah, let's go down that lane for a little while here.
Well, the best one I've found so far is dill. Dill attracts ladybugs. So any aphids, mites, thrips, any of the little creepy crawlies that you don't want on there, the ladybugs eat them. So by planting the dill, it brings them in. Marigold, a lot of people have known for many years to plant marigold around your garden. It's an excellent companion crop for any of your food crops as well, because it keeps deer and rabbit don't like it. It's got it keeps a lot of other stuff away as well. This year I have so much wild geranium growing in the field, I decided to leave it and just see how that works. Because wild geranium and geranium oil, it's got natural resistance to a lot of things. So I thought it'd be good to leave it. In your basic culinary herbs, rosemary, thyme, these are really good companion plants as well. Plant your herbs in your herb garden. I would definitely say that. But to me, it's just about managing projects. I didn't get a chance to start enough of them indoors, so not everything has its good companion plant. So this year I got a variegated lemon thyme. It's so good, and I got that around it, and I got some golden oregano, just the basic things out in the field. But like Datura, I have a lot of Jimson weed here, Datura selenesis. And I'd even be interested to talk with Mario about this one, because I've seen in Ayurvedic myth and legend that Shiva liked to consume Datura with cannabis. So I grow them together. And last year it did really good. So I can't really give you the science about, it's the smell of the atropine that keeps the da-da-da-da-da away. I don't know, but it does pair well. But you got to get the timing right, because the Datura will outgrow the cannabis and cluster it, because they'll get 3, 4, 5 foot tall if you let them.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love that. I think there's so many plants that are buddies and like that, and it's really interesting to watch the ones that just thrive together, just like people. Some people get along and some people don't. Yeah, it's super cool. I love that. And one of the other things that I remember you talking about was you working with sunflowers and cannabis. which to me makes a lot of sense as well.
Yeah, I wish I'd gotten some more in this year. I just got like one going in the herb garden. It's by my mowing. But I was more like growing those to extract sunflower oil because like this year half my crop isn't even THC. I'm growing a lot more CBD genetics.
Okay, cool.
Because it comes in to play in the lab with all the distillation equipment. I can separate cannabinoids by their boiling point. So I can custom dial in. You want something 25% THC and 75% CBD? I'll be able to make that here soon. I'll be able to custom blend the cannabinoids. But I got to get up money for testing and everything so I can figure out what other cannabinoids I have in there besides your basic THC, CBD. So I'm looking. That's my project this year. THC isn't moving, so go back to CBD. But I just got to do something to stay alive. Make more money off dandelions than cannabis at this point.
Well, it's like the best way to do it, in my opinion. So, well, Lee, I want to respect your time. We talked about maybe going for about an hour, so we're just about there. It's 4th of July, so you got some plans, and it's a fun day to just kind of celebrate with people. But having you here for even this time has been awesome, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate you coming on today. And I really would love to have a longer form with you because I feel like I could keep asking questions, and I think that we could keep riffing and talk about, especially I want to at some point have an episode with you where we focus on, and maybe we could do something where you've sent me videos and things like that of your actual lab setup, just to show people, how involved you are with this stuff, and you're doing really great work. And so I just want people to be able to see some of that. So we'll plan it when it's not a holiday and like crazy height of summer growing time. So with all that said, I know you said in the beginning, but again, let people know where they can find you. I have your Facebook and what else? I have one other link for you in the description. I didn't know you were on Telegram, so I can add that to the description after the show. But yeah, just let people know where they can find you.
Absolutely. Thunderchicken87 at protonmail.me. I'm on Facebook as Lee Thunderchicken. You can find me through Michelle's friends list and all that, because I think I'm only visible through friends of friends. And then Telegram, I don't remember my handle. And I don't really want to give out my personal cell phone number here.
Yeah, don't do that.
If you message me through Facebook or email, I will give it to you, because that is the most quickest way I can get back to people. I'm trying to keep up with messages across like 3 or 4 platforms, and I'm working. So sometimes it might take me a day to get back to people. And I feel bad about that, but damn it, I'm busy.
Yeah, don't feel bad about that. I totally know how that goes too. And then you start to feel like, oh shit, am I a bad person? And it's like, no, you're just living life, and that's how it goes. And no, it's don't beat yourself up about that one. But okay, yeah, I have your YouTube. That's what I have in the description.
Yes.
You also have a YouTube channel. So well, cool. I'm so happy. This is great. Thank you so much, Lee, and enjoy the rest of your holiday. And we'll talk very soon.
Much love. I look forward to doing it again.
All right. Later. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye. Alrighty, y'all. Well, that was fun. That was like a quick one, but gosh, it was loaded with so much good information. As usual, I knew that Lee would be able to bring it with all of his knowledge, and I've learned a lot from him just knowing him over the last like maybe 6 to 8 months, I would say. As I said, I've never gotten to meet him in person, but just him as a person, his energy that I get online and whenever we've talked has just always been so great, and just so much appreciation for everything he's doing, and the fact that he just wants people to know the importance of growing your own plants and growing them healthily and not using a bunch of crazy stuff, and knowing that you can do it as well. I think that's one of the biggest things, and so I think like he's a really great person. So get out there and find him if you're interested in stuff. He makes a lot of his own salves and creams as well. And so you can support him definitely through Facebook or, like he said, on his email. So my internet was super slow when I was trying to pop up my slides that we made for the end here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and share my screen, and we're going to see how that goes. It might not go very well. it might not go well at all. But we're going to try. And I don't even know 100% like how I can do it. So here we go. Let's try and share this. Okay, I'm sharing. Okay, it's here. Sweet. So thank you to all the patrons. So very grateful for you guys. I say it every episode, but it really does mean a lot to have you guys coming on over to Patreon. Really helps Mario and I out in big, big ways. It's motivating and it's helping us keep these wheels spinning. So thank you, Chance, Binaboo, Inland Sea, Liam, Amy, Miri and Hank, Jenny G, Erica, Moonlander, Mary, Catherine, Logan, Lilyvine, Debbie, Natasha, Mary Beth. What's up, Mary Beth? I saw you in the chat. Thank you for hanging out. And Nausicaa. I think that's how you might say her name, Nausicaa. So yes, thank you guys so much. Really appreciate all the support as always. Now let's go to the next. I am finagling the screen sharing thing. All right, cool. Patreon.com/thehealinghome is where you can sign up for Patreon. Next week's show, we have Dr. Elderberry. Oh my goodness. I am so excited to talk to this woman. She is something special, and her actual real name is Elderberry, by the way. So don't discount her because you think that, oh, well, she just calls herself Elderberry. Her name is actually Elderberry. She is doing some really great work. Her specialty seems to be homeopathy. So I'm really excited to pick her brain about homeopathics, the way she uses them. She's a clinical herbalist, so she sees clients. She has a really cool perspective on health and how our emotions play into it, how being in a victim mindset is one of the worst things you can do for your health, and how being proactive and taking back your health and taking it into your own hands is really important. So that will be Dr. Elderberry on July 18th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, because there will be no show next week. Mario and I are heading out of town once again. We are going down to Fresno, California for his cousin's wedding, actually his second cousin's wedding. So no Healing Home next week, and there's no last Thursday this week, just a heads up. But we'll be back with you here on July 18th with Dr. Elderberry. Full Moon Offering newsletter. The next issue comes out on August 1st, which is exciting. We have actually 2 full moons in the month of August. So we will be having a blue moon on August 31st, which is always really nice and exciting. So to sign up for the newsletter, head to michelleshealinghome.com, go to the newsletter tab, and there will be a form at the bottom of the page where you can sign up for the newsletter. You can also sign up for it on the homepage as well. All right, so this month's full moon offering just came out yesterday, and it is my fresh St. John's wort tincture and anointing oil set. Boy, oh boy, people, this is a good one. Oh my goodness. This St. John's medicine is something to behold. It is scarlet red. It is made with St. John's wort that was grown in our garden. And, you know, the cool thing about this set is that, and I talk about this in the newsletter issue. So if you want to know more about it, you know, you can go to my website and read the actual issue if you're not already signed up. But so St. John's wort, sometimes when it's taken internally, can cause photosensitivity in some people. Now, that means that you can become more sensitive to the sun if you take St. John's wort internally. This goes along with farmers, actually, also who have livestock. Typically, they don't want St. John's wort on their farm because if livestock eats St. John's wort, they can be more prone to sunburn, and it can actually injure them to the point of death. So, with that said, the antidote to this is, interestingly enough, St. John's wort applied topically as an infused oil. And that's why I paired these together, because if you're going to start taking the tincture A good thing to do would be to apply the oil before and after sun exposure, and it will really, truly help to protect your skin. Now, it's not sunscreen by any means, but it will be a buffer to perhaps what could be, be photosensitivity that could be coming from the St. John's wort. You might not notice anything at all, but I thought it'd be fun to pair these two. Both remedies are made with fresh St. John's wort, which is the best way to do it because the hypericin in that St. John's wort is going to come through when it's fresh. Once it's dried, it really those essential oils and those that medicine in particular gets dried up really quickly. So whether you purchase this fresh St. John's wort or another one, just make sure it's made with fresh. That's what I want to say. What I want to say is if you purchase St. John's wort medicine from anywhere else, make sure it's made with fresh medicine to get the best, highest quality medicine that you can. Up on the screen is my current menu. So we have the St. John's wort tincture and anointing oil set for $44. I've got my CBD cannabis root and white willow bark salve. Cannabis root was another thing I wanted to talk to Thunderchicken about. We've kind of talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to pick his brain about it because cannabis root is one of my favorite parts of the cannabis plant to work with, to be honest. I find it to be super, super valuable, super penetrating, allowing the medicine that is already in the salve that you're making. Once adding cannabis root, I swear it's like the cannabis root is a driver. It drives things deeper into the tissues and into the skin. So at some other point, I'll be able to talk to Thunderchicken about that one for sure. And let's see. As always, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com for placing orders, for questions, for, if you just want to get a hold of me, you have something you want to ask me, email me. That's the best way to get a hold of me. michelleshealinghome.com for all other inquiries. I'm also on Telegram if you want to find me. Just Michelle's Healing Home is my group. You can call or text me. This is my Google Voice number. So just to say that this number sometimes can be a little wonky. It comes through my email. So if you do this, be patient. So 503-568-1569 if you feel like that is something you want to do. Mario and I had a really fun last Thursday episode last week. We talked about LSD. We talked about Merry Pranksters. We talked about how LSD really influenced the time. Also, the aspect of MK Ultra hooked up to LSD and the culture creation that happened through LSD and how it literally was seeded out to the public through the CIA, through programs, through the San Francisco Free Clinic, you name it. It was seeded out. It was an agenda. It was an experiment, just like so many things are an experiment. So anyway, if you didn't catch that one and you're into this sort of thing, go on to my YouTube channel right here under the live tab, and you can find the last Thursday episode. As I said earlier, we will not be having a last Thursday this week. We will actually be traveling on that day. But we'll be back the following week and we'll hang out with you guys for another edition another episode of the Summer of Love, which has been super fun to be doing. Another update is that I will be along with Mario on Vibrant tomorrow on the Interverse podcast with Chance Garton. We will have Kyle of Tippy Canoe Herbs. As I said, Mario will be there and Slick Dissident won't be there, but Emily Redot, I think that's how you say her name. She is an astrologer as well. She also works with yoga and astrology. So her whole thing is blending the two. And I am so pumped that she's going to be there. It's going to be really fun. So we're going to talk about cancer because we're in cancer season right now. So it'll be Astro Herbs Cancer Edition. Come and join us tomorrow on the Interverse podcast at 5 p.m. And that will be super fun. That whole series has been super fun. It's a nice, it's just a nice challenge too, to be constantly thinking of the herbs for these astrological signs, because I feel as though the herbs, they really like being, among the astrology, among the stars, they correspond really well. There's so many doctrine of signatures that come through, showing you what sign that these plants are actually related to. So it's going to be really fun. Really looking forward to it. And with all of that said, my people, thank you so much for joining me. I just really appreciate you all being here, especially on the 4th of July. I don't really celebrate this holiday, to be honest, but it is a holiday nonetheless, which means it throws a wrench into some people's schedules. So the fact that you guys were all hanging out really means a lot to me, as always. So thank you so much, and show Thunderchicken some love if you feel like it. And we will see you not next week, the week after, on the 17th with Dr. Elderberry. Until then, much love to y'all and take care.